Welcome, everybody, to another segment of UFO Man Live. My name is Tim, or UFO Man. To my side is my friend, my co host, Tommy Highway. Tommy?
Folks, I'm Tommy Highway. Thrilled to be here this evening. We have a fantastic show for you. I'm going to be doing a storytelling tonight, something that I personally experienced. I think you're going to be really very happy with it and blown away, frankly. Tim?
Before we go into the story with Tommy, I'm going to give you some background information. According to the Mahabharata in ancient India, there is a decidedly good chance that their god Shiva, who came down from the heavens in a light ship, along with his brothers and sisters, could have arrived from space, and they could have been advanced space beings. They were blue in skin, and they interbred with the existing hominid to create other blue genetic traits. Now, according to what I understand, that genetic trait is called methemoglobinemia. It's a really big, hard word to pronounce, but methemoglobinemia, what that is the cell that carries blood or oxygen from your bloodstream to your tissues usually has only 0.5% of methemoglobinemia in it. But if you have 1%, your skin will turn out the color of my tie, which is indigo blue. And that's what these people are. Now, could these people have crossed continents and centuries through genetic traits passed on from human to human all the way to North America and the European colonies? Because the original person that settled in the United States that was blue-skinned was Martin Fugate, and he was a French orphan. So we're going to leave it there, and we're going to let Tommy take it away from there. Tommy?
Well, let's go ahead and talk about Mr. Fugate first. The year is 1820, and a French orphan called Martin Fugate has just arrived in Troublesome Creek, a remote and sleepy settlement in eastern Kentucky. It is here he plans to start a family with his new wife, a red-haired woman called Elizabeth Smith, described as being as pale as the mountain laurel that blooms every spring around the creek hollows. That's pretty white, I guess. The thing is, Fugate isn't like any of the other men in the area. He has a rare genetic condition that has turned his skin a striking indigo blue. The couple went on to have 7 children, and 4 of them, like their father, had blue skin. Fast forward to the 70s, and Benjamin Stacy has just been born. Stacy is the great-great-great-great-grandson of Martin Fugate and Elizabeth Smith. But by this point, the blue people of Kentucky are just a memory. This is because of, yet to the surprise of his parents and the hospital staff, Stacy inherits the family distinctive blue coloring. This is because of a condition called however Tim just pronounced that.
Methemoglobinemia.
Thank you very much, sir. Levels in other words, it's low levels of red blood cells to rise above 1%. It turns the skin blue, the lips purple, and the blood and a chocolate brown. This condition can be triggered by exposure to particular chemicals, benzocaine and xylocaine, for an example. But in this case, it was an inherited product of a faulty gene that most probably caused a deficiency in the enzyme called cytochrome B5,
right?
Something. Just trust me, it's a big word. Fortunately for the Fugates, in their kin, there are no physical health problems associated with their blue skin. In fact, most survived well into their 80s and 90s. That isn't to say that it wasn't a deep source of shame and psychological trauma. The family were embarrassed and discriminated against by their local community because of their skin color. This caused them to seek greater social isolation, which somewhat ironically exacerbated the problem. This is because of the condition, in almost all cases, is a product of inbreeding. So in other words, they're saying that the blue people, the blue skin is basically most likely result of inbreeding. Sixth generation of the Fugit family, who lived in the hills of Kentucky from 1800 to 1960, had blue skin. The blue lineage began in the early 1800s when Martin Fugit, a French orphan, settled on the banks of the Troublesome Creek. Okay, so anyway, so it just goes back into the same thing. So let me tell you, folks, what my experience is with the blue people. Okay, and this is kind of a long story, but I want to tell the story in its entirety because it gives it all context. Okay, I'm 14 years old. It's the early 80s, and for whatever reason, I usually hung out with older kids. Like all of my friends were driving, kind of thing, when I was that age. And one day, a friend of mine who was, again, older, his family owned some property in the hills of Kentucky. And he decided he was going to put together a camping trip. So a bunch of people, 6 of us, got together to go camping. There was a girl there, April, who was a couple of years older than I was. And she and I were going to get very friendly on this trip. Okay. And it was like a big deal for me. And anyway, so we all load up our gear. One day we get in his vehicle, which is a Chevy Suburban, and we drive about 3 hours to Kentucky. And to get to the spot that we were going to, his family's property, it was like a 40-minute trip on a gravel road. I mean, I'm talking about in the middle of absolute nowhere. There is nothing anywhere, just nothing but land and mountains and things of that nature. So we finally arrive at this spot that dead-ended in just woods, just like a big wall of nothing but wilderness. And he's like, okay, we got to park here and we got to hike through the woods to get to the spot. It's not very far. It's like 100 yards. No big deal. Okay. At this point, you have to understand it's probably around 1, 2 o'clock in the afternoon, something like that. So we get all of our gear and we start walking through these woods, and there's a pretty defined trail. And it wasn't like there was a very long walk or anything. You could see where the clearing opened up. I mean, you could see it with the naked eye. And as we were walking, all of a sudden, I began to get hit by something. Like some kind of insect would hit me and drop to the ground. And other people were experiencing this as well. Just boom, bounce off of you. And then we started hearing a low-pitched a hum, I'll call it. But it was kind of omnidirectional. It was like you couldn't really tell where it was coming from. But it was there. And everybody was, looking around, what is that? What is that? And then the hum got a little bit louder. And then someone screamed, and I'll never forget this, bees. Somebody screamed bees. And it's about the same time that happened, all of a sudden the level of noise went from a little bit of a buzz to a bunch of sewing machines running. I mean, just there were clearly a ton of them, and they were close. So somebody screamed run, which not that anybody had to. We all started running for the clearing, for the opening of the opening of the woods so we can get out into the clearing. And as we're running, people are starting to shed their gear, stuff like that. Now, I kept mine, but the bees were on us. I mean, they started stinging us. And one or two, I remember the first one I got was right in the back of the neck, and it put the fear of God into me. And people were screaming and slapping their faces and all of this because we were just being stung. I remember looking back into the woods, and there were so many of these bees that the trees, as the swarm moved forward toward us, the trees would disappear behind them. There were that many bees. Yeah. Wow. I mean, this is a massive, major hive. I mean, huge. And we finally get to the clearing, and the only thing that's on this property, imagine a mountain with like a small flat space on it. And that's what this essentially was. Now you could see where there was an old settlement. There's still like the brick foundation of an old building that wasn't there anymore. The only thing left on the entire property was this old wooden shed with a tin roof on it. And the thing was, I mean, leaning almost 40 degrees, I'll bet. I mean, it looked like it was like the box that a shed would come in. Okay. It's just not even just a shell, really. But that was it. That's all there was as far as cover. So we all instinctively ran into this thing. And you got to understand, this is maybe a 5x5 shed, and there's 6 of us. So we're literally on top of each other inside of this thing. We get in there, and again, the whole time we're just being stung, just without mercy, And Chad, the guy who owned the property, whose parents owned the property, well, the door of this thing was gone, but it was still laying there. So he picked up the door, and put it where it's supposed to go. And then those of us that still had equipment began to take our gear off. I remember cramming like like a ball of socks into one of the holes. We're like putting whatever we could to fill up these holes to keep these bees from coming in. And I mean, this thing was like Swiss cheese. I'm telling you, it was. I mean, I can't believe it was still standing. That's how old this thing was. Dangerous to be in there. And then while we're doing this, while we're plugging up all these holes, the bees like congregated on top of the tin roof, and they started humming and making this noise that was so brutal on the senses that there were times that all you could do was just hold your ears and scream. Okay, I mean, it is unbelievable. I mean, I just can't imagine a sound like that in nature. Anyway, so they're still coming in, but they're not coming in. They're like pouring in. There's a few here, a few there. We're still being stung. Now, as it happens, I had a tent that was unique technology at the time. It was a 2-person tent, dome tent, but if you pulled both handles on it, it would open itself up. So it was like a self, that type of tent, it would pop open, self-opening tent. And I popped that thing open in the middle of this, in this shed, and we all got inside of it and zipped it closed. And you got to understand, this is a 2-person tent. There's 6 of us. We are literally on top of each other. I mean, literally, it was crazy, but at least it gave us some cover from these bees. And then no sooner did we get in there and get the door closed and try to get so we're semi-comfortable somehow, some way, April, the girl that I was going to hang out with, screams like bloody murder. Okay. And we literally had to gyrate ourselves and stuff to get to her under the pile to figure out why she was screaming. And as it happens, one of the bees, well, a lot of them, but one of the bees that had gotten into the tent stung her right here in the corner of her eye. Okay. Probably about the worst place you can get stung. And I'm telling you, it started going, whoop. I mean, it swelled up like a baseball in a matter of minutes. It was so bad that I remember thinking, we got to get her to the hospital. This could be a disfiguring thing. I mean, that bad. Like her eyeball was sort of bulging out and stuff. It's awful. But we couldn't go anywhere. There's nothing we could do. All we could do was just lay there and wait. And we laid there until, I would say, probably 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning. I mean, they stayed there till after night, and they would get kind of quiet, and then they would start up again, the bees on the roof. So it was like a cycle that they were doing. And at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, something like that, all of a sudden they just stopped. And I mean, it was like somebody threw a switch. There was no more bee noise at all. But we were still afraid to get out of there because, they could be waiting. And the only place that we could go was we had to walk right back through the way we came. There was no other way to get to the vehicle. And again, we had to get this girl some medical attention.
Right.
So, right about daybreak, I remember Chad pulled the door off and he's looking around and there's no bees, but for some reason there were a heck of a lot of dead bees on the ground. And not something that we did to them. I don't know what killed them, but there were a significant amount of dead bees laying around. Anyway, we decided that we're going to have to go for it. We're going to have to run through the woods. I'm going to put her on my back because I'm going to be the hero here, of course. And so put her on my back, and we took off through the woods fast as we could. And we got to the vehicle, without incident. We didn't see any more bees or hear anything or whatever. To this day, I couldn't tell you where they came from. We get in his vehicle. We take off down this 40-minute gravel road. We finally come to this old general store. And you got to understand that, yeah, this is the 80s, but this place was so old that the gas pumps, there were 2 of them out front, they still had the globes on top. Wow. Those of you that are older will know what I'm talking about. And the place needed a paint job since the 50s. That's how old it was. So we run into this building, into this shop, and there's this big fat dude behind the counter. Big fat dude. Guy probably weighs 400 pounds. Got this big bushy salt and pepper beard with all kinds of chunks of food in it and stuff. And we're like, listen, we need a hospital. We need a doctor. Where's the closest one at? We got someone out here that's hurt. And I'm going to try to do his accent here, but no offense to anyone. But he said, I'll tell you what, he said, there's a nurse on up there to the holler, and he called it the holler. And he draws us a map. You drive on up to the holler and take a left, and you'll find that clinic, and she'll take care of you. She takes care of everybody around here. All right. Okay, cool. He even drew us a little map. So the guy was pretty cool. So we run back out, jump in the vehicle, take off, and we had to drive another 30 minutes or so, well, 20, 30 minutes up into this another part of the mountain. And sure enough, we came to this building. It was like a small L-shaped building. It was made out of, it looked like a cinder block building kind of thing. But it had been there. You could tell it had been there forever. I mean, it needed a paint job forever. There was an ambulance sitting out front. I would say it was from the 50s. Okay. I mean, like back in the days when the ambulance and the hearses looked almost exactly the same because they were the same, like that. All right. So we pull up, park next to that hearse, or not hearse, but ambulance. And I jump out and another girl jump out, and we run up to this building, and the building's got this old rusty big steel door on it. Open it up, and it's like creaking open. We run in there, and it's sure enough, it's a clinic. Okay. It's got like a little desk right there, I guess, to sign in or whatever. It had like a little waiting area, and it had a wicker wheelchair, an antique thing. The thing is probably worth a bunch of money now, but it had a wicker wheelchair standing there. Anyway, we're going, hello, is anybody here? And then the very back of the hallway, the very end of the hallway, sidesteps this nurse. Okay. And you have to picture a nurse that's probably in her late 80s, I would say. And she is literally wearing World War II period nurse's uniform. Exactly like that. I mean, if you've ever seen a World War II movie and the nurses, that's what she was dressed as. And she starts yelling at us. What do you want? What are you doing here? And, just real rudely. And we're like, listen, we got someone, we're all stung to pieces by bees. We got someone's hurt real bad. We need you to look at him. Will you help us out? And she's just like, all right, fine. Just go ahead and get in that first room, but don't you come out of that room. You get in there and I'll be in there when I get good and ready. Just real nasty human being. So, okay, so we get our friend and all six of us go into the room to the left. And it's one of these rooms that's got like multiple hospital beds, just like you would see in the 50s. I'll put it this way. There wasn't the technology, the newest medical technology in this room was probably 25 or 30 years old. I mean, no joke. I'm talking about something you'd see like from MASH or something almost. Crazy. So we're waiting there, and finally she comes in and she just starts letting us have it. You kids ain't supposed to be up here messing around. What are you doing up here? Nobody wants you up here, blah, blah, blah. I mean, just lit into us. And again, we are stung from head to toe here. We legitimately need medical attention. So she starts looking at, well, there were two real bad stings. That girl had one, and then another one of our guy friends got it right in the lip, and his blew up really big. So she starts looking at these two people, and the whole time she's cussing us out, I'll tell you what, that's what you get for coming up here. You ain't belong here, blah, 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 blah. I mean, it was unbelievable. And while she's cussing us out, I was standing at the doorway into the hall and there was a girl, Heather, standing right across from me. And all of a sudden, something runs past us and like down the hall, like where the nurse came from, just real fast, like a blur. We both looked at each other. It was real small, whatever it was. We both looked at each other like, did that just happen? So while this nurse is going on, while she's working on our people, while she's working on our people, no, hang on a second. The nurse is mad because she's like, we're making her late because she has to go up and see the blue people. Okay, she says this, and one of the guys that we were with, he goes, "Excuse me, ma'am, did you say blue people?" And she goes on to say that yeah, they're people. Their skin color is blue. They don't like nobody. They don't want nobody around them. They don't want to be bothered by nobody. And then she said that I don't remember if she said that there were two small colonies of them in Kentucky and one big one in Pennsylvania, or if it was the other way around. But there were 3 colonies of them, nonetheless. And we're listening to this like, full, BS, right? Sure, this woman's crazy. Well, that's about the time that we saw this blur. So while she's still distracted, let's say, working on our friends, Heather and I walked to the very back of that hallway, and we turned to the right. And I'm telling you, folks, as God as my witness, there before us stands this little girl, looks like she's probably 7, 8 years old tops. She had blonde hair that was kind of braided, like they do. And she was wearing a denim, like a homemade denim dress with that white chiffon or whatever they call it around there. And I'm telling you, she was as blue could be. I mean, shockingly blue. Like I'm looking at a person, from a race that I've never seen before, like that. Okay. And we looked at her and she looked at us, and she was so shocking to look at that Heather, the girl, she kind of gasped. She's like, like that. And I don't know if that's what set this little girl off or not, but she screamed bloody ass murder. And then she took off right between us, went down that hall and busted right out the front door. Okay. And this happened. I want to make sure I'm clear. This happened in a matter of a couple of seconds here. It wasn't like we sat there and looked at her for, 20 seconds, 30 seconds. She was there and then she was gone. Well, as she does this, and we come down the hallway trying to figure out what to do, here comes the nurse screaming out of that room, and she is just going nuts. What do you do? I told you to stay in this room. You heard me say that. I told you I'm going to call the sheriff on you. I'm going to have all of you in jail. You better go out there and find that little girl, and you better find her. And look at that overlay. I mean, that's what I'm talking about. So this woman went so far off the deep end about us finding this little girl that we decided, okay, fine. 2 of us will go up to the north and 2 of us will go down to the south of the area, do some circles and see if we can find her. Okay. Now this is probably about noon or so, not really hot yet. Now I made a huge mistake. I remember this, not taking any water, because we got a couple of miles away from this clinic and we were doing like these circles to find her. And we came to a creek bed, and I look up and there she stands. She's looking right at us. And I mean, big as life. And then she took like a couple steps back, and I'm telling you, you'd be surprised. The blue, anything blue hides pretty well in the woods, just FYI, because she just disappeared. So we kept looking for her. We're both dying of thirst at this point. It's getting really hot. You got to figure it's the Midwest in mid-August. Okay, so it can get unpleasantly hot, and it was.
Yes.
Yeah. So we kept looking. We finally came up to like a railroad track, and just beyond the railroad track, there was like this retaining wall that had been built around like a hill, a bunch of rocks, I guess, to keep the rocks from rolling down on the track or whatever. Well, she was standing right in the middle of this thing. I could see her perfectly, but she couldn't see me. So we made a plan that Heather was going to run around this way and scare her toward me, and I'd run around this way. She'd like scare her into me, which worked perfectly. So she scares this little girl. So the little girl's running at me, and I grab her, and she bites down on my arm. And I'm telling you, I mean, I was shaking her off like a cartoon, okay, trying to get her off my arm. I really was. And then she finally let go and hit the ground and then took off and got past me. And that's when Heather, the girl, I mean, let's say she sacked the quarterback. I mean, she absolutely just plowed this little girl to the point where I was like, I hope we didn't just hurt this kid. But she seemed fine. She was screaming and just rabid kind of, to the point where Heather couldn't hold her. She couldn't handle her. So I had to grab this little girl like by her waist and by the back of her neck. All right. It's the only way I can handle her and not get bit. And we started carrying her back to the clinic. Now, while I've got this little girl, I'm taking a pretty good look at her. Okay. And just because, I mean, I've never encountered this before. And folks, I'm telling you, her skin was a uniform color of blue. I mean, there wasn't the splotches or anything like that. A lot like that right there, only that's an old guy. So you got to understand that. But I mean, just a uniform color. She had brown eyes, real pretty hair. Her features were Anglo-Saxon. I mean, if you'd have seen this, if she'd have been just a regular little white girl, you'd have thought she's probably the prettiest little girl you ever seen before. But the fact that she is absolutely blue. So we're carrying her back, and we're a couple miles away from this place. Okay. And I mean, I'm almost wondering if I could find my way back. And again, it's just thirsty as this could possibly be. We finally come up over the hill, and there is the clinic. But now there's a big sheriff's car parked there. This is back when those cars were like the Buick LeSabres and all that, the big boat cars. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Every one of them had a big block V8 in them and all that. Well, there's one sitting there. So as the little girl finally looks up, she sees the clinic and she starts going crazy again, because she had calmed down a little bit. And she's going crazy again. I'm having a hard time holding her. Well, while this is happening, the door opens at the clinic, and here comes this sheriff. And this guy probably weighs 400 pounds. He is so fat that he literally had to turn sideways, all right, to come through this door. No joke. And the nurse was right behind him. Well, as soon as I saw the nurse and the little girl saw the nurse, I let the little girl go. And she ran straight up to the nurse, and the nurse grabbed her, and they disappeared inside. All right. So the sheriff is like, I need to see you people in that room right now. You get your asses in that room, and don't you come out till I come in there to get you. You know, he's playing it tough. And so we go back in the room and looking at our friends. And April, the girl's still out. She's still unconscious, but she's looking better. They had ice on it and all that. She's looking a lot better. And then I remember I heard an engine turn on outside, a car fire up. And I looked out the window, and it was that nurse and with that little blue girl, and they were pulling out. They were leaving. All right. So then the cop comes into the room, and he gets this metal chair, and he turns it the other way, the opposite way, you know, so like the back of the chair is facing us, and he sits down on it like this. And he made it a point to make eye contact and stare down each one of us. Okay. And then after that, he starts talking about how we didn't see this. This ain't none of our business. We're not supposed to be up there. And then he would go into things like saying things like, you city kids come up here and disappear all the time. Nobody ever finds them. A lot of bad things can happen to kids like you up in the holler, you know, stuff. He was threatening us. I'm not going to go into the rest of it about what I felt about that. But my point being to the whole story is that, look, these people are real. I mean, they live here. They live among us. They've been a part of our society for a very long time. But they're so xenophobic that, I mean, a person could conceivably live 500 lifetimes and never meet one. But when you see them, it's really something. I mean, it almost made me question evolutionary theories and all kinds of things, really. But, you know, they're here. They're among us. These people live among us. These people probably have social security numbers. They probably have birth records. Then they're born in the United States of America. Tim?
Yeah, and that's why we're trying to connect them back to ancient India, because we've got some pictures to show you. Some of the deities and idols and statuary in India indicate blue-skinned people, such as this. This is one of them. And here's a picture of one of the goddesses that came down with Shiva, one of the idols. Another one, I don't know the significance of the tongue, but they're all blue-skinned.
Mm-hmm.
So the idea is, could they have passed on their lineage, their genetic traits from human to human across continents, across centuries, to the European colonies, you know? And then that French guy came over to the U.S. who was blue-skinned, and he passed it on over here.
Mm-hmm. To me, the inbred theory, the inbreeding theory, it just doesn't hold water. If you have inbreeding and you have an anomaly or something like that, fine. But we're talking about colonies of people, you know, and if they're really, I mean, is there really colonies of inbred people in this country? I don't know about that. I mean, they're all blue. I don't know.
Yeah, the articles I read about the blue people suggested that over time, the methemoglobinemia genetic trait would be diminished, and the people would no longer be blue. But that isn't the case. They're still retaining their blue pallor, just like my tie, and maybe even a little darker. And they are indigo blue. So if you ever come across a blue person, either they're faking it with dye or they're legitimately blue. You can usually tell by looking at the eyes. If they dyed themselves, they didn't go all the way to the edge of the eye. But real blue people do. They look exactly like that. Yeah.
The inside of her mouth was also blue, just FYI. Believe me, I got a real good look at that. Real good look. And the inside of her mouth was blue. Her tongue probably was too. I mean, we're not talking about, you know, putting paint or dye or something like that on somebody. I mean, through and through.
If you want to research the blue people, This is where they're located. They're located at Troublesome Creek, Kentucky, the Blue Fugates. Check them out. You can find it on Google. That's where I found it. So check that out. And Tommy had firsthand knowledge.
Yeah, these people are so xenophobic that they make the Amish seem like party animals. I mean, that's the thing. They are deep, deep, deep covered, deep concealed, and they do not want to be bothered by us, regular mankind whatsoever. They're not interested. And I mean, it was really something. I mean, it was an eye-opening experience as a young man, folks. It really was. These people are real.
Tommy, do you want to tell people where they can find this story?
Yeah, absolutely, folks. This is one of the stories that I included in one of my books a while back called Strange Tales from the Highway. You can pick that up at Amazon. You can check me out at Tommy Highway. I have several offerings out there. Or you can go out to my website, www.tommyhighway.com, and you can buy a copy there. But there's my UFO stories are in there and the blue people stories. And there's more to the story. This was more of a concise version than I've told you folks this evening. But yeah, I mean, it's they're here. They are absolutely here. And here's the thing. I know how this story sounds. And I'll be honest with you, like I was telling Tim backstage, if I hadn't experienced this myself and someone told me this story, I probably wouldn't believe it. I probably wouldn't.
Exactly.
But the fact that I was there, I actually had my hands literally on one of these people. I can tell you that they're absolutely real. We're
going to rule out one thing. This gentleman here is not one of the Fugates. He does not have the methemoglobinemia problem. Naturally, he wasn't born with it. He was poisoned, and it created this problem, and it changed his molecule. What I'm going to say is this man is no longer with us. He used to be called Papa Smurf. He made a lot of fame because of his blue skin, but he is not one of the Fugates.
Yeah, and every time I've told this story over the years, a lot of people will kind of come back with that gentleman, and like I try to explain to them, that guy is the product of some sort of an accident. These people are born this way, and they're a completely different color blue than that gentleman. I mean, they're more like the blue light behind him than they are the color of his skin. Yeah, and I mean it is uniform a color. There's no splotchiness. There's no anything like that. I mean, it's every cell in there, every skin cell they have is blue. The bottom line.
Right. Exactly. And if you come across one, good luck catching one without getting injured, according to Tommy.
I was a 175-pound linebacker, and this little girl gave me a run for my money.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Okay, going on to our next segment, we're going to be doing our UFO video review. Tommy, do you want to discuss about the suppression of the UFO subject while I'm getting it brought up?
Sure, but I tell you one thing I would like to mention is the Oumuamua thing. I think that's pretty interesting. Yeah, folks, I have this from a couple of different sources, and the first time I heard it, I thought it was just complete BS. I thought that, there's no way that this could possibly be true. Then I got this from another source that I trust that basically never agrees with the first source, and they're both agreeing on this. Apparently, and take this as what it is, this is a rumor. I have no basis of fact for this. I don't have any evidence, anything like that, other than word of mouth. But they're saying let's just say word around the campfire, is that a secret mission to Oumuamua, is either in the late stages of planning if it hasn't already launched. They want to land on Oumuamua, and they want to figure out what that is, because they don't believe that the story that they gave the public about it being just a flat asteroid and all of that, they don't believe that. There's more to the story with Oumuamua, and they want to launch a mission out there to land on this thing, to figure out exactly what we're looking for here. Now, when you look at Oumuamua and you see the track that it came into our universe, it didn't get that way naturally. It didn't come that way. It had to come there under some sort of propulsion system. I mean, some sort of force. Right. It just doesn't jive with everything else that's going on in our galaxy and or around it. But I just thought that was just an interesting thing. We'll see, again, maybe just a total rumor, maybe, crap information. I don't know. But the two sources that I got this from were enough for me to kind of raise my eyebrows at it.
Right. Okay, here we go. You hear it? Portal releases orb UFO over New York City on 8/3/2021. It was released to MUFON.
Wow.
Now, what makes me think this is a portal is that thing came out of it, and when it came out of it, it shrunk in size. The big light.
Huh.
Now, there's the big light. There it comes.
Boy, that is really something, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay, this has no sound, but if you look just above the horizon, you can see something coming into frame. And then it recedes back out into space and disappears. Now, I do have a close-up of this. You can tell it's round.
Mm-hmm.
My first thought when I saw this was, maybe it's a planet. But the planet isn't that close to the Earth, other than our moon, right?
Maybe a satellite or something, but
I thought maybe it could also be like the sun at first, but it's not, because the sun would be much larger.
mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely.
So these are some still shots. Here's a still shot of the actual object at the end. You can see it reflecting light on the top. Here's a huge hovering UFO over Costa Rica on 8/11/2021.
Yup.
Stationary.
Bro, that is a UFO and he's just chilling, like literally just chilling over there. Like, that's so funny. Look how many lights that thing has. How is this happening and no one even notices?
Is that not
They just chilling,
because
bro.
they're blinking their lights at us?
Yes, they are. They're just chilling, bro, like on the camera too.
Oh, they're literally blinking all of their lights at us.
I know. I see it, bro.
What? They're blinking all of their lights at us. That was sick. It was like, peace out.
Yeah, they're speaking with the lights.
Some people thought this might be a house on a hill, but it's not, according to the witnesses.
That is insane, bro.
I don't know.
There's a big picture of it right there. I have no idea what that is. kind of
Anybody,
distorted.
anybody in the chat got a theory on this one?
I have no idea if space junk reflects light that way. I think he meant that from the last video. Okay, moving on. Oops. Okay, here we go. Night vision UFOs over the East Ranch in Washington State. No sound of this one. But what's interesting is this has either something following it or like a ball on the back end of it. If you see that, there it's surrogated toward the rear end of it, the left side. And a gentleman named GameVet02 sent me a clip from Cottage Grove, Minnesota that shows the exact same vehicle with that segregated ball on the back end, just more difficult to see than this one. This one was filmed in night vision. See, there's another UFO passing it.
I can buy the one passing it maybe being a satellite, but that's no satellite. And you're right; it's got like a boat tail taper or something on the back of it there.
Right, way in back of it.
Yeah.
Yep. East City Ranch by Mount Adams and Mount Rainier is very, very known for these type of objects. James Gilliland, or John Gilliland. Here's amazing phase-shifting amber UFOs over Ohio. This is in your neck of the woods, Tommy. Check this out. Now that street light kind of clouds the image. I will get closer.
Maybe drones.
Oh, the way they're morphing, I don't know about that. Wait till you see it close up. Okay, I'm going to bring it close up now. It's hard to see right at the moment. Here we go. Well, I don't think those are drones because they're morphing together.
Do we know what part of Ohio this was, Tim?
Yeah, this was over Cleveland.
Interesting.
Yeah, I don't know what they were. Here's a ring UFO spotted in clouds at an amusement park in Doswell, Virginia. I say UFO because I have no other idea what it is.
Wow. It's got a definite edge all the way around it.
Yeah, it's definitely holding its shape. I don't know what it is.
Huh. Yeah, Nancy, I agree with you. Something that's cloaked but not quite, or maybe something with the cloud is making it. That's got a definitive edge all the way around it.
Right, exactly.
That's as round as it gets. If it was a weather phenomenon, it's not going to be that round. There's no way.
If it was a smoke ring, it wouldn't be that round either.
Nope, and it wouldn't last very long either.
Okay, I'm going to have a close-up of that ring so you can take a look at it. There it is. Now you can see it's perfectly oval like an egg. Kind of. I don't think
Well,
it's
that
perfectly round. It
it
may be
might
round.
it might be our vantage point, but it's got a deliberate edge all the way around it. And I cannot think of any kind of weather phenomenon or anything that would do that. And
Right,
especially sit there and hold its shape like that. I mean, that's
right.
just, oh boy, folks. I like this one.
Yeah, it's different. Next one. Fast UFO changes direction twice over New York City.
Looks like it's tumbling.
Yeah, watch how fast it moves. It'll start moving really fast.
I'm not seeing a commercial drone move that fast. There's no way.
Nah.
No, there's no way. And there's lightning in the distance. We know how they love storms.
Yep. Check this out. This little going to be a little closer. So you can see the object a little more. It's still distorted, but it is definitely a white light.
To me, it looks like there's two balls of white light together and they're tumbling.
Yep. And there's no blinking red or
Mm-mm.
blue or green light for aviation lights for like a drone.
Mm-mm. Excited swamp gas, Nancy. Reflected off a lighthouse 2,000 miles away.
Yeah, no, off the butt of a goose. Okay,
I
that's
have
that
I,
one.
I have no explanation for that one other than definitely possible UFO on that one.
Here's a deer trail cam pickup. We don't know what it is. Just wait a second. We'll play it again. It's coming out of the woods. Now you know those deer trail cams, they don't move. They're strapped to a tree. And it seems like that deer sees it.
Yeah, can we see that again, please?
It'll play it again.
The trail cam is moving. The camera pans up. Look at the deer.
Yeah. I think it sees what it sees coming toward it.
I didn't know those things moved. Something bothers me about this video.
Maybe the lenses.
I never heard of one that did that. They're usually a fixed position. I mean, unless there's any of you hunters out there that can have better information than I have, but usually I thought they were just fixed in one location and that's it.
I have another piece of footage like that. Trail cam lights in Morris, Pennsylvania. Raccoon. Watch the left-hand side of the frame.
And Amos, I agree with you. I, as far as I know, they just do photos, but maybe they do video too. I guess they probably could.
Watch this.
What is that?
It is possible that this is some sort of reflection off the camera lens. I am no expert in photography, so I cannot say for sure. Maybe someone can shed some light on this UFO. Now, I put that on there because I don't know if it's camera lens flare or not. Lens flare, sorry.
Flaring off of what? What light source?
Yeah, that's the problem. The light is being provided by the camera. Here it comes.
I don't know what that is, but lens flare is not real high on my list.
There's the picture of it. Now it's segregated. They're evenly spaced. I don't know what those are. Anybody in the chat think they know what that is? Yeah. If the lens is stationary, Snoops, and you're correct, it doesn't move up and down. So I don't know. Nama says it looks fake. No, it's not fake. It's legitimate footage.
I have my doubts about the last one. It's authenticity, I should say.
Actually got clarification that it was real. This is a large shadow moving over the ISS. I thought it was interesting because I have no idea what would cause something that large and that round to pass over the ISS.
That is incredible.
Now it stops.
There should be nothing. There should be nothing around the ISS. They specifically put it in orbit so that it will not come into conflict with anything else's orbit. But yet there's a big shadow right over top of that installation. That is crazy.
Right, it's going to play again. Adventures with Beth says there are trail cameras with motion detection.
Sure. Our thing is, do they have? I mean, does the actual lens move on those things? And I can't think of one that does. Maybe they're out there, but
I think the lens can move, but the camera can't. Now I don't know what that is because the camera on the ISS is trying to adjust. You can see the picture moving. It's just a super large shadow over the top of or beside the ISS. And it has to be something super large to cast that big of a shadow.
You bet.
And what would be round? You know, here's multicolored flashing lights on Asia News channel. Now I will get closer on this so you can see it. Tommy, can you read that?
Sure. I'm just not going to tell you guys what it says.
Oh, okay.
Well, I think we can rule flares out. Maybe drones, but
Well, this was a couple of years ago. So maybe drones, yeah, because Asia and China and Japan and whatnot are known for drones. But this made the news. So if it were drones, it would have been said that it was drones. They said these were unidentified objects.
interesting.
Bubby Blindy says, it's drone party time. Well, very likely could be Bubby Blindy, but I'm not certain of that because of what the news channel claimed. So let's see here. I think that may be the end of our UFO video review for 8/14/2021. Thank you all for watching and listening to us present that. Okay, Tommy, can you elaborate on the article concerning metamaterials and what they're going to be doing with it, the federal government? What are they going to be doing?
You bet. Folks, I'm going to go ahead and share a story with you that's actually a part of the Washington Examiner website. And according to them, the U.S. Army has signed a contract to study and exploit materials from unidentified flying objects. It intends to use what it learns in order to develop new weapons platforms. No, I'm not joking. The facts are provided in a newly agreed cooperative research and development contract between the U.S. Army's Combat Capabilities Development Command, specifically the Ground Vehicle Systems Center, and the UFO Technology Exploitation Group to the Stars Academy. I didn't know that existed. Established by Blink 182 founder Tom DeLonge. To the Stars Academy involves former U.S. government, military, and advanced aerospace engineers in the research and capability exploitation of unidentified aerial phenomena, or UFOs. The U.S. Army stamped and signed a 26-page contract is quite stunning. It says that the To the Stars Academy has shown the Army that it is a company with material and technology innovations that offer capability advancements for Army ground vehicles. These technological innovations have been acquired, designed, or produced by To the Stars Academy, leveraging advancements in metamaterials and quantum physics to push performance gains. The government is interested, the contract explains, in a variety of the collaborators' technologies, such as, but not limited to, internal mass reduction, mechanical structural materials, electromagnetic, metamaterial waveguides, quantum physics, quantum communications, and beamed energy propulsion. The contract also entails the research of metamaterial exploitation for the purposes of active camouflage and directed photo projection. On the last point, an Army spokesman tells me that To the Stars Academy has conveyed it has the means of supporting camouflage, concealment, deception, and obstruction interests. But what is this metamaterial? I can confirm that at least some of the source material was retrieved from crashed remnants or materials sourced from UFOs. Analysts of these UFOs suggest that they are enabled with space, time, cloaking, transmedium travel, and gravity manipulation capabilities. That's not crazy conspiracy talk. In a key credibility submission, the contract adds that the Office of the Secretary of Defense can share historical reports of findings and origin of material solutions in the possession of To the Stars Academy. So what they're saying there, folks, is that the military is going ahead and they've provided these materials to the Stars Academy for this research. So that's almost an admission right there that, we've had crash materials. In translation, historical reports of material exploitation from crashed UFOs. We're not in Kansas anymore, folks. And that's a quote. The baseline 60-month duration, the contract will give the Army access to advanced material solutions into the Stars Academy's possession. To the Stars Academy will provide the government with the access to its subject matter experts and metamaterial of both mechanical and electromagnetic sensitive metamaterial. In turn, To the Stars Academy will share in the government's research findings and have access to its testing facilities. Neither side will pay the other for the contract. Interesting. That's really interesting.
And it's funny that Tom DeLonge and his organization actually has full access to the metamaterials. I mean, if he has all those metamaterials and they're going to release them, it's funny because when Lou Elizondo broke free from TTSA with Chris Mellon and that other gentleman, and formed Adam to study the metamaterials, it didn't only come to light until recently that they formed a partnership back up with TTSA under the CRADA Act. So maybe that's where they're coming from. Maybe that's where they're getting the metamaterials is actually from Adam, supplied to TTSA and then to the federal government for this weaponry development. But it sounds like they're using alien technology to do exactly what we were warned against by the aliens themselves.
Oh, as well as was it FDR, I think, or no, not FDR. Who am I trying to say?
Dwight D. Eisenhower.
Eisenhower said that the industrial military complex is basically the enemy of the people, and he came right out and said that on the way out the door. I mean, that's a historical fact.
Beware of the military-industrial complex.
The other thing that this makes me believe is that there are probably civilians walking around out there that have, for whatever reason, come into contact with some of these materials. Maybe they walked up on a crash site or where a crash site was or whatever, similar to my experience. I mean, it could have been something that was left behind, and maybe that's the metamaterial that they're talking about. Let me go ahead and continue here. It says the government's rationale for the contract is simple. If the government can verify Material Solutions claims to the STARS Academy, it says, then significant advancements can be made in the capabilities of Army ground vehicle platforms in terms of security, force protection, and weight reduction. Read between the lines here. How do you reduce weight? Gravity manipulation. Yes, Tom DeLonge has a penchant for saying things that are unbound from the established evidence, but he and his organization deserve significant credit here, because with this formal contract, they have gained the U.S. government's open, attestation that it believes to the STARS Academy has access to exceptionally advanced technological capabilities. So the government, it believes this guy. They think that this guy is actually in possession of some of this stuff, and for whatever reason, they think that he and his research team are the people to actually do the work on it. So I think that's very interesting. Is it true? Washington Examiner, I mean, that's not exactly a tabloid, so I don't know.
Well, that's only the metamaterials. That's only the metals and debris that was left behind from UFO crashes. Because, Tommy, when it comes to other things, the Space Force was recently assigned the duty of the UAP investigation. Can you elaborate on that, please?
Yeah, basically, what's happened here is that the government has decided to take the UFO, the subject of UFOs, investigation of UFOs, and everything that comes along with that, and take that essentially away from the Air Force, where it's been forever. And now they've actually gone ahead and saddled the Space Force with this information. Those of you that, many of you know, President Trump created the Space Force. They are the newest member or the newest branch of the United States military. And now these folks are going to be the ones that are actually, oh, there's their uniform. Check that out. Is that hot or what? But these are going to be the folks that are going to essentially take over the UFO investigation from here on out. Now, it depends on how you feel about this. I personally feel that, yeah, okay, let's do this. And why do I think that? Well, first of all, the Air Force has had this investigation, or the power to investigate this, for how long now? For decades, okay? I don't think they've done a particularly good job on it, and I think that they've suffered by having to be the ones responsible for this, for the investigation of UAP UFOs. To me, I think maybe let's get a fresh set of eyes on this. Let's put a different branch in charge of this. Maybe we'll get a different result. Because with the stigma over UFOs and the deniability that the Air Force has put into this for decades, the outright bald-faced lies to the American people and the rest of the world, why not give it to somebody else at this point? Tim, what are your thoughts?
Not just the Air Force, but the Office of Naval Intelligence. The U.S. Navy's been the head of a lot of UFO studies for decades as well. And they really haven't come out and said anything until that footage was leaked back in 2004 and then 2017. So all I can say is this. I personally believe that the Space Force could investigate the phenomenon out in space. But in our atmosphere, I think they're going to have difficulty because they're not on the ground. They're not flying around in our atmosphere, supposedly. They're supposedly out in space. So maybe they can see incoming craft. But when it comes to actual vehicles that people are sighting, like myself and Tommy, from the ground in our atmosphere, I don't think the Space Force is appropriate. Now, the thing that I have to say about that real quick is this. Space Force is up in arms. The generals that lead the Space Force are up in arms right now because they're very ticked off that the federal government, the Pentagon, assigned them the responsibility of the continuing UFO research program. Why is this? Because they feel that it's going to discredit them.
The stigma.
The stigma, the taboo, exactly. They think it's going to ruin their reputation. But what is the Space Force really? Space Force is really this. They want to weaponize space.
That's true. They want to weaponize space, but I think it's more along the, because we could have weaponized space for decades if we wanted to. But I think it's more along the concerns of other nations weaponizing space, and that we have to actually get with the program, and we have to have our own defense and offensive systems and things like that in orbit.
Right, exactly.
It's unfortunate. It really is. But as far as the Space Force, I mean, I understand where they're coming from about the stigma on this and all that. But one thing that we have to understand is the Space Force probably just got access to every one of our number one top of the line spy satellites. Those satellites that can read a license plate from orbit, things like that, they have access to all that. And one of the things that was said, that was mentioned during what I understand was the classified portion rather of the UFO report, was that a lot of the information that we have, videos and photographs and things like that, were in fact derived from satellite technology. So, at this point, again, I mean, I think I understand where they're coming from with the stigma, but at the end of the day, General, you took the oath, you get a paycheck.
Yeah, do your job.
You just go ahead and do your job. And we'll just leave it at that.
Exactly. We, the people, deserve to have the knowledge and the protection from whatever you're protecting us from. So, okay. The last article we want to discuss, well, actually, it's not an article, is Chami and I read about SpaceX just recently being awarded a contract from the federal government to put man back on the moon by 2030. Now, that doesn't mean just landing there, but actually building a moon base and establishing a permanent moon base where people can go and stay for months at a time, or maybe even years. Tommy?
That's right. And, it's interesting that when you talk about space travel, let's say we're talking about going to Mars, for instance, or we could be talking about space mining of some sort, mining asteroids and things like that. We know that there's asteroids that are just full of minerals out there. The key to doing that in an efficient way, in a profitable way, let's say, is going to be a base on the moon. Okay, that's you're going to have a launching pad where you don't need to basically escape the bonds of gravity and things of that nature. See, what you have to understand about our current level of space travel is most of the fuel in a rocket or the shuttle or whatever the case may be, a space vehicle, most of that fuel is used to get out of the atmosphere. Okay. And then once you get into the atmosphere, you have very little left. And that's why the space shuttle was an orbiter. It didn't exactly fly around out there. Sure, it had little jets that could move it here and there, but it had a specific trajectory, a specific track that it was supposed to be on. And to me, the moon just seems like the next logical step. Now, they've found water on the moon, ice crystals on the moon, things like that. We know that because for whatever reason, the Obama administration decided to look for water on the backside of the moon and nuke it, because I guess using nuclear weapons is a great way to find water, by atomizing it and irradiating it. We know that happened. So, but there is some form of water on the moon that we can acquire. We could probably liquefy. We can, utilize. It makes sense. It makes all the sense in the world.
It does.
Now, what's going on the backside of the moon? All the strange stories, all the strange photographs, the eyewitness accounts of the photographs that we've seen over the years. What was it? Stephen Greer, was it that video that he did of the series of people unacknowledged or something? Okay, right. If you watch that, there's a really, really good section in there where there's two people that actually talk about photographs of structures on the moon that are not human. So It's going to be very interesting.
We also interviewed a gentleman last week by the name of Rodney Thomas that has a Celestron camera where he can view the moon. And he told us point blank on our interview that there are definitely structures on the moon, that he has seen them firsthand. And that if you have that technology in your hands at home, if you have a Celestron telescope, you should focus it on the moon, and you will see them as well, and it'll blow your mind.
Yeah. So, he's just one of many people that not only make that claim, but actually have the video evidence to back it up. There's all kinds of activity going on the moon, and none of it is us. So,
Right. And then, I tend to disagree with that actually, because I've actually heard reports that we're already on the moon. So whether that can be backed up or not, we can't say, but I have heard reports on that. In regards to the moon, SpaceX, um, I found out recently by talking to some friends of mine that SpaceX actually leases launch pads from Kennedy Space Station, Space Center, to launch their rockets. Now, um, that's why they got the contract, because they can get some of their rocket material returned to Earth when it lands again, like the shell and whatnot. So it's less costly. Tommy?
That's right. And it's interesting that they realize that if they can actually land the rocket body itself and keep that intact and reuse it, how much cheaper that made space travel. And so far, they're right. It does do that. Now, I guess my question is, what happens when you heat up metal and it cools and it heats and cools? You're going to have fatigue. You're going to have things like that. I mean, who wants to go up into space on a used rocket at this point, right? I don't think I'm going to sign up for that one myself, but yeah, it's just really interesting. And I think Elon Musk is the guy that's going to put us on the map when it comes to space travel. I do believe he's going to do that. Do I think he's going to make it to Mars next year before, whenever he promised, 2024, I think? I don't see that happening. I see a moon base before that. Because if you have a moon base, a platform that you can launch vehicles, it makes it a heck of a lot easier, a heck of a lot more efficient, and most importantly, a heck of a lot cheaper to fly in interstellar ways. Okay, in other words, to visit other planets, because again, you're not using all that fuel. There's all kinds of other things that you have to worry about with a terrestrial craft getting out of the atmosphere that you don't have to worry about when it comes to launching something from the moon. And for one thing, the vehicle doesn't even need to be as tough.
Also, they could mine minerals on the moon that may be used for fuel. So
Sure.
That could really help out as well. The only thing that I want to question is escaping the moon itself, because it has no atmosphere. It's going to require a lot of fuel anyways to get off the moon, wouldn't it, Tommy?
Well, not necessarily, because it's 1/16 of the gravity of Earth, I think, something like that.
Right.
So, I mean, in theory, let's say a craft that weighs 5,000 pounds on Earth. Okay, if you look at, I don't know what the math is on this, but in theory, that 5,000 pound craft is probably going to weigh 1,000 pounds, something like that, probably less on the moon because of the gravity. Because gravity is weight. That's what creates your weight, gravity and mass. So once you no longer have that factor, you can produce things of a lot lighter material. Okay, you're going to use less fuel to push those things because there's no resistance and there's no friction. You can forget about friction. You don't need heat shielding anymore. There's a lot of things that you don't need if you're launching from space that you need if you're launching from a terrestrial platform.
Right. Okay. So we know for a fact that we don't need as much fuel. And if they can mine it on the moon, it would save transportation of fuel from Earth. So they could be totally independent and have a moon base. So the contract has been awarded by the federal government recently to Elon Musk and SpaceX to put man back on the moon by 2030. So keep your ears to the ground, and we'll wait and see the developments. Tommy, any last words?
Yeah, helium-3 is probably going to be the thing that we mine from the moon first. And helium-3 is a wonderful power source. It's absolutely clean. There's all kinds of different things that you can do with it. The problem is there's only about a pound or so of it here on the planet. Now, the moon is constantly bombarded with it. So that would be a great product to mine from there. And to be perfectly honest, one of the theories is that those structures on the backside of the moon are doing just that. They're mining helium-3 because it's like a bumper crop right there. So, I mean, they may be the aliens may be using our moon to fuel their not only their craft, but maybe even their civilization to a certain extent. Who knows? We're not going to know until we do a lot more detailed research on the moon. I don't trust the probes that have gone up there at all. One of the reasons I don't trust it is because like the Japanese probe that orbited. Who saw the video from that? I saw Phobos.
Yeah, it got destroyed.
No, not Phobos. I'm talking about, this was about 10 years ago. Japan sent a lunar probe to
Oh yeah, the lunar probe. Yeah,
map
I'm
our
sorry.
moon, essentially. Yeah, they're mapping our
Right.
moon. But what's interesting about that is, I mean, that thing was up there for a couple of years doing this, and there's about 15 seconds worth of footage from it. That's it. Now, why haven't they shown us everything? And the reason, I fear, is because there's something going on that they don't want us to know about.
Right. I stand corrected on Phobos. I was thinking about something else. Okay. So if you want to hear more about some UFO stories and occult stories and the blue people, please check out Tommy's book, Strange Tales from the Highway. Tommy, you tell them where it is?
Yeah, you can find that out on Amazon. You can find it on Booksmash. You can also find it at my website. That's TommyHighway.com, folks.
Okay, thank you very much. Any last words, Tommy?
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming out. We really appreciate it. Hopefully, we had a great show tonight. The blue people thing is very interesting. They exist. They are real. They are as real as you and I are, and they live among us. The fact that they're not well known at all, and in fact, again, most people have never heard of them. That's just how good. Let's just say that when it comes to the hide and seek championship of the world, it's between them and Bigfoot at this point. But I can tell you, not besides Bigfoot, these people are actually real. That being said, Tim and I want to invite everybody over to our Patreon site. Take a look at that. If you'd like to become a member, that would really help out our channel a lot. We'd really appreciate that. Also, folks, if you could share out our links to you on your social media sites and platforms, that would really help us out a lot. We're trying to expand the channel. We really appreciate everybody that stays with us and sticks with us and comes out to see us every week, folks. It's such a pleasure to do the show for you. And there's a lot of work that goes into this, to be honest. I mean, we're not just two guys that just sit down on Saturday and start talking about UFOs. There's meetings and production and arguments and all kinds of good stuff. But hopefully, every Saturday, we just really strive to give you folks a great show. We thank you for being a part of it with us.
Okay, the one thing I want to say about Patreon, we do have membership tiers as low as $1 a month. So come over and check us out and check out some information that's not on the YouTube channel that we have on there. Also on the 21st, next Saturday on the 21st of August, we're going to be having a special guest. His name is Whitley Strieber. He was the author of the book Communion. A movie was made of it as well with Christopher Walken. And if you haven't read the book and you don't know what the book's about, go on YouTube and type in Communion, and the movie will come up and you can watch the movie. Now, according to Whitley, the movie has not really told the truth.
They Hollywooded it up.
Yeah, they made it more entertaining. So if you want to know the truth, come see us on Saturday, August 21st at 8 o'clock p.m. and we will pick his brain and let you know what the truth is from the horse's mouth. So come on down and see Whitley Strieber. All right. We want to thank everybody in the chat room, everybody on live who watched us live. And let's see here. I also want to thank, Tommy. I want to thank Tommy for being here. Thank you, bro.
Always a pleasure.
And as always, good night.